Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik, and this is Smarter Home Life. We are still catching up on Q&A episodes from the summer, covering home automation from the July period, and then we'll get to August, and then we'll be all caught up and be ready to cover September and October. Anyways, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our random Patreon contributors, Richard B. Thank you so much for being a long-time contributor. If you want to join them over at patreon.com/smarterhomelife, there's probably a link up somewhere or in the show notes. They help make the show possible and couldn't do it without them. So thank you guys so much. I'd like to thank them on the Q&A episodes because these Q&A episodes are a little bit longer, kind of more like podcasts where I can just talk free form and not as highly produced for the 5-minute length of time that most people have an attention span for our regular episodes. So let's dive right in. This one, we've got, I think, three comments or questions or emails or whatever. You can get your own questions on the shows at questions@smarterhomelife.com. It's easier for me to figure out the questions that way versus comments, but I do look through everything and take the best ones, throw them on the show. So, Dan Kane, thanks for the info. He's asking about the Google, we're talking about the Google OnHub, which is their router, and he's also specifically asking about Google Home. Is there any indication yet as to how Home will interact with OnHub? OnHub was supposed to be all about future connected home functionality. I can't tell whether Google Home is intended to supplement OnHub or completely replace OnHub's planned smart controller functionality. Yeah, well, your guess is as good as mine. Not really. The challenge with Google is right now, without going into, and I could make this whole episode and make this whole rant. In my opinion, Google, well, not just in my opinion, in many people's opinion, Google is known, of course, at least with its software and services, for taking ideas, throwing them at the wall, and seeing what sticks, right? We're all used to that. Gmail was in beta for years, Google Wave, Google this, Google that. Products come and go all the time. The challenge is when you get to actual physical products, right? They make something physically, they launch it, they announce it, it comes out, and maybe it's a flop. I don't know. A good friend of mine actually has the Google OnHub. Thinks it's a great router, doesn't really know what to do with it for smart home stuff, but obviously that is coming soon. But my short opinion on the whole thing with Google and Nest and what they're doing and all these separate announcements and engineers going over here, and you've got Nest, the home automation company, and then you've got the Google Home, which is going to serve as a home automation device, and then you've got the OnHub, which also has home automation tech in it because it has the 802. I apologize for not remembering every little bit of this. That's not right. I wrote it down wrong. 802.15.4 is the right thing, which is also a part of Zigbee. So, and it's also, of course, it has Bluetooth on board as well. I apologize for my French, but I think the whole Google and Nest thing is a clusterfuck right now. I completely think it is an absolute CF, and Nest really needs to get its act together, especially now that Tony Fadell left. They bought Dropcam. Okay, great. They've launched a couple of cameras, but they have yet to launch another big home automation product. They're trying to be a home automation hubless controller or system. That's great, but again, you're part of Google, and now Google is doing this other stuff. And you had the announcements about Brillo and Weave, a year and a couple of months ago, where all of it's going to go. So, how these products are going to interact. We know from a few months ago and also from recently that the OnHub, which of course, like I said, supports 802.15.4, Zigbee, and its home automation stuff, the OnHub supports IFTTT based on when your device connects to it and then disconnects from it, assuming that's your kind of home and away mode. I think it's better to do that via geolocation and back it up with that you connected to the device. But that's neither here nor there for whether you're home or not. So you can do some stuff with IFTTT. It can now do things with Philips Hue, but it's not like the Philips Hue hub is built into the OnHub. The other question is, what is the OnHub going to do with Google Home? Google Home is going to also have all this tech built into it. So why did they make a router that has all this smart home stuff built into it? Could it be that they simply want to make all these protocols built in? Because 802.15.4 is also part of Thread, which Google and Nest are, or at least Nest is a part of. Thread is a whole nother networking protocol for IoT and SmartThings and home automation devices. That's still a little ways away from implementation into actual products, but we'll probably hear more about Thread products and Thread certified products along with Google's own, Brillo and Weave technologies at CES 2017, which we hope to be actually at CES, and also, of course, at Google I/O next year. But in the meantime, announcements are going to trickle out. We're not sure what's going on. What I've seen, the latest news on the Google Home front is that there's an announcement potentially scheduled for October 4th. That's less than a month away at this point, where we actually may get the official release date, or that may be the official release date of the Google Home. I have contacted Google to be on the early release in terms of for reviewing. Obviously, I am not Marcus Brownlee and am not as important to YouTube as I'm Marcus Brownlee, but we are going to definitely be there to try and be on the list of early reviews, or we'll just have to buy it. And of course, that goes back to Patreon and directly supporting the show. That is about the best answer I can give you. Some of these, because it's Google and they didn't tell us what they're going to do with this thing, it's hard to come up with an answer. Google OnHub, in 6 months, Google could say, well, that was fun, we don't care anymore, so we're not selling it anymore, and it becomes a relic and an antique. Because devices like the Amazon Echo that's sitting, you can't see the dot that's sitting behind me, it doesn't even have that stuff built in terms of it doesn't have 802.15.4 Zigbee, it doesn't have Z-Wave. It communicates with all your other smart home stuff via Wi-Fi, via the internet, basically. So there's that. I couldn't tell you at this point what Google exactly is going to do with it. I think the OnHub, I just don't know what they're going to do with the additional functionality, unless they're going to try to perhaps have it as a repeater, so that there's a better mesh network. You could have the Google Home device over here. You could have an OnHub. They could be attempting to make it so that there can be a mesh network of all this stuff. That's one thing that Google is good at, is infrastructure, obviously. So if you had multiple OnHub devices, they're not only serving Wi-Fi, they're not only serving Bluetooth, they're serving your Internet of Things protocol as well. So it could build a stronger network for all of your smarter home stuff. That's definitely a possibility. Outside of that, I'm not quite sure, but we'll find out as we find out more about Google Home, and you'll hear about it first. You'll hear about it first here on Smarter Home Life. So thank you, Dan, for your question. And again, questions at Smarter Home Life is the best way to get a hold of me, or just comment on one of the videos and I'm sure I'll find it somehow. Andrew Wright, another comment. Hi, Joe. My question is about Hue GU10 lamps. We haven't actually reviewed the GU10 lamps, but we've reviewed a number of Philips Hue products. I have some dimmer switches connected to the lights with old GU10, and I don't have one in my hand. I should, but I don't. That don't dim. My question is, can I replace the old lamps with the Hue versions of them? So it's a long question. Okay, so what he's basically saying is he's got some, just double check that just so I'm not misspeaking, correct? Okay, so he's got some GU10, which are the little, like I said, I should have one. These are the tiny little ones you put in track lighting, and they're either, they come in spots or floods. Wonderful little guys. He's got a dimmer hooked up to them right now, but the bulbs themselves don't dim. They're probably just generic LED GU10s that happen to not dim. He wants to put in, not this. This is a BR30, but it's a Philips Hue device. There's the Philips brand name. So he wants to put in the GU10 version of this, so he can have color changes and white, multiple shades of white light and so forth. He wants to do that, but he's saying, can I do it on a dimmer? Well, the answer is no. The short answer is no. You never, I'm not going to, I have to be careful. Not never, because there are some smart bulbs that actually can interact with dimmers and switches in magical ways. But in general, you don't want to ever put a smart bulb like a Philips Hue or a LifeX or any kind of bulb that is just not a regular dimmable LED or otherwise bulb. Anything that's got smarts in it and Wi-Fi and signal processing and all that stuff. Never put one of those on a dimmer. They're not made to be dimmed in that way. They're made to be on full power, whatever that is, whatever country, whatever part of the world you're at. You get the right one for your power system. And basically it means that if you've got one of these, if you have a dimmer switch, you need to replace it with one of these guys. Decora or a regular old, on-off kind of switch. Decora on-off. Or just completely pull the switch out. If you're going to control it specifically with apps and other home automation devices, your smart bulbs, just take the switch completely out, connect the wires together so you've got an always-on connection, put a blank faceplate over it, and call it done. That's the easiest thing. So again, never put a smart bulb on a dimmer. Always put it on full power. If you don't want to replace the switch, you can always do the old tape trick and put a note. Don't ever turn this off. It's not really great, but if you don't want to do the wiring, then go ahead and do that. So that's the answer. I hope that covers it. We've got more smart bulb reviews coming up. In the fall, I will say, we will have a LifeX review finally here, probably somewhere near the end of September, and all kinds of other cool LED stuff. We'll be getting back to the LED bulbs soon. They just haven't generated as much interest, and the LED lighting world hasn't done as many headline products as they had in the past 2 years when we had got started several years ago as lighting answers. So back to LED stuff soon. We'll be mixing it back and forth with home automation. So thank you, Andrew, for your comment and question. So the next one, this is probably a little bit of a long one, but I'll try to keep this concise. And I don't know if I actually responded to him over email. So this was an email, Johnny Goni. So if I didn't respond to you, I apologize. So here's his response, and here you go. I just switched from Android. We'll be reviewing Android stuff coming up because we have to live in that world. Can't just live in the iOS world. I just switched from Android to Apple. I've got the SmartThings hub, but it's not compatible with Siri. Probably never will be, because it's owned by Samsung. Anyways, and I have the ecobee 3 thermostat. We're probably going to review that too, just not yet. Which I love, and I like the integration with Siri. Now I want to control some lights and switches inside the house and outside of it, and I'm looking into Lutron or Insteon hubs, and I really don't know which one to buy. If you can guide me, that will be awesome. Well, let me try to guide you. These are always challenges because I've never been to your house. I don't know what you're going to control. Are you going to dim it? Do you care about dimming? I care a lot about dimming. We've talked about that enormously on this show over the past several years. So the issue is he's got SmartThings. He just went from Android to Apple. He likes Siri. He likes HomeKit. SmartThings is compatible with the ecobee 3, so that's no problem there. But he doesn't get control over it through voice. This brings up the question of, do you need a home automation hub? Or do you need maybe an app that does all of it? I'll put a link on the screen and in the show notes to Yonomi, which is a home automation controller app compatible with both Android and iOS, that basically act as a home automation controller for all the different things, and they are they're in a unique position as a third party, so they can bridge all those divides among manufacturers and systems and platforms without the repercussions of having to play favorites. That's the short version of it. So you mentioned Lutron, you mentioned Insteon. Lutron I've been disappointed with their Casita hub. I was disappointed with it a year ago when they launched it, and I continued testing it and continued looking through their updates, and it still didn't get better. And I was very disappointed because Lutron is known for lighting. They're known for the high-end lighting systems in high-end homes and in commercial buildings, churches, whatnot. All those beautiful scenes and the dimmers and whatnot. So why they cheaped out on their expensive home automation platform, Lutron Casita, that's also compatible with HomeKit, I don't know. They control lights very well, but you have no options for the length of time it takes for something to dim. It didn't do well on all the different LED bulbs I tested it with, and it didn't dim as low as I really expected it to. And I just thought, come on, Lutron, you're Lutron, like, you should nail this. Insteon has been nailing it for years, since 2005 when their original products launched. Insteon was the kind of successor to, in my opinion, to X10 from the old days, and Insteon is an entire home automation system. They do have the hub. The hub has slightly less functionality with the HomeKit version because of Apple's requirements. So certain things like cameras don't work with it. And Insteon itself has some integrations with like the Nest thermostat. I don't believe that they have the integration yet, or it could have just launched potentially with ecobee 3. But again, since you've got HomeKit control over ecobee 3, you don't need it to be compatible with the Insteon. You could do Insteon for just lighting and some sensors if you wanted to, and go from there. These are the questions that we're going to cover, these kind of things, in the mini-series that we just started on getting started with home automation. So watch those episodes as they come out. I would say if you want to control lighting, and if you really want a lot of great, wonderful, beautiful, not just beautiful scenes in terms of dimming and whatnot and control, but beautiful devices, I say go with Insteon. Because you're going to guaranteed to be able to get that technology working correctly with HomeKit, and also it's just Insteon's been around for a while. It's very stable. It's great. I use it here. We're going to have a mini series on Insteon coming up as well. So that's the best I can say. I kind of would steer you away from Lutron. It's also kind of a proprietary system a little bit. Insteon is somewhat proprietary, but it's open in a way. Lutron is kind of just, it's their own world. So I would say go the Insteon route for lighting control. For other things, you could probably find a way to integrate something. There's ways to hack HomeKit through software, but I don't know if that's your game or not. So anyways, you can email me back if you want some more information on that stuff. And that's it for that question from Johnny. That is it. Those are the three we've got for the July episode here of the home automation Q&A. So I will mention once again this thing about Patreon. Patreon's a way of supporting the show directly, because basically the ads don't cover the budget. The budget, which is part of how I make a living these days, is basically that's the show's budget. And when we want to review products that the manufacturers don't send us for free, then I have to go out and use the show's budget to go buy that stuff. And as you know, watching this show and looking at the prices of these technology products, they're not cheap. So that's what Patreon is there for. It's a way for you to contribute to the show, but to also contribute and invest in me creating this content now and in the future along these different topics of the smarter home and LED lighting and all this new future technology stuff. So whether it's worth $1 a month to you, $2 a month, $5 a month, we have different perk levels and kind of fun things for you to get access to. The old joke is, if I had $1 for every single one of my 5,500 subscribers, the show would be doing really well. So that would be amazing. But that the law of numbers doesn't work like that, and you may be one of the people who just says it's YouTube, it should be free. So you watch it for free and you watch some ads. And I thank you for watching. I thank you for subscribing, and I thank you for being part of our little community. So I will say thank you to our contributors, Michael, both Patricks, Richard, Christian, John, Sean, and Jim. Thank you for being longtime contributors. We don't have a lot of them yet, but we are building that. So patreon.com/smarterhomelife. That is the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. We've got one more Q&A coming up, and then we get back to regular episodes and fun stuff here on Smarter Home Life. I'm Joe DeGanzik. See you next time.